Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the Cryptoverse. This is NFA Live, not Financial Advice Live. We are here again. We have Jessica from Coin Bureau.
Hi, guys.
And Rob from Digital Asset News.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me back.
Happy to have you here. So we're just going to go through some different questions, basically around sort of the topics of the day, the halving, the ETF stuff for Ethereum, and even some of the stuff that happened recently with KuCoin being indicted by the U.S. Justice Department. And we're just going to talk about a few of these things. And at the end, we're going to take all of your questions, or at least some of those questions. So if you do have a question you want to answer, just remember to put those questions in the chat. Maybe wait about 30 minutes and then do it. But just try to get that in there so we can get to those. All right, first question, Jessica, we will start with you. So the halving is almost here. Oh, I think like 20 days or 21 days. It's not that far away. So what are your expectations for April? Do you think a lot of new people are going to come to crypto? I mean, do you think some of the headlines around the halving are going to bring in some new faces into the space? I'm just kind of curious, what in general are you expecting next month as the halving finally arrives?
This is a really good point, because I think this year has kind of flown past everyone, maybe because the markets have been euphorically higher than we were expecting, that I can't believe it's kind of the end of March already. And typically, yes, where the halving, sentiment does seem to build. The main reason for the build in sentiment is you see that more TradFi media platforms will bring on board those Bitcoin bulls, the likes of kind of Anthony Papiano, Mike Novogratz, Michael Saylor will be doing a lot more speaker appearances and be shilling a little bit of crypto. And I'm sure this year is going to be a little bit different based on the fact that we have already surpassed the all-time highs that we have seen in November 2021. I think one interesting thing to keep in mind is that we're still not fully at the peak of the kind of social media buzz and hype of the last bull market cycle. So we still do have a lot of momentum and movement up to go. I think it's quite hard to base it on previous price cycles, and then also the social media sentiment. You guys will know as well when it comes to the viewership of social media channels when the markets are picking up. There was a really interesting segment on CNBC, I think it was about a week ago, with Austin Federa, who's the head of strategy at Solana. And he was saying that although we've seen, daily active users at new all-time highs, and we've seen search volumes for Solana surpassing search volumes for Bitcoin and search volumes at all-time highs, he still hasn't seen the peak insanity that he recalls from 2021, which is like, the celebrities reaching out to say, hey, let's like do a little partnership or a collaboration. So if you're basing it on that kind of sentiment of people reaching out to you and inquiring about crypto, we still have a long way to go. And absolutely, the halving is a great catalyst for that. BitGet actually did a really interesting survey where they had asked retail users that use the platform the likelihood of Bitcoin surpassing new all-time highs straight after the halving, and 84% of participants are bullish on the halving as a price catalyst. And I think for us, we're like, of course, the halving is a no-brainer because of the supply and demand buzz that it will create and the market cycles that come with it. But I think it's pretty much a given for most people in crypto that they understand the halving is a market catalyst that does cause things to get momentum moving. But Gracie Chen, who is the CEO of BitGet, also pointed out that this bull market run, we would see other narratives fueling the market cycle, the likes of kind of the buzz around Deepin. Obviously, the spot Bitcoin ETFs is going to be a good one. And it's difficult to gauge the conclusions of what we're going to see when it comes to how quickly the price action and the buzz of the halving is going to come into play, because there's no cookie cutter approach. If we look at last halving was 2020, that was the COVID year. So that was just an anomaly in itself. And then before that was 2016, where the crypto industry looked a whole lot different to how it looks today. So I think the full impact of how this halving will be a catalyst to onboard new people, it's a given they will come. To what extent, that will be up for debate, and I think that's something we'll just have to watch and observe as it does go along. But there was an interesting tweet that was out this week, and it was to do with the supply impact that we will see from the halving, because as we know, it's not an immediate effect. So typically you do see almost a sell the news event. I think with social media, with crypto narratives, we really cling on to like, what's the talking point at the moment? How can we talk about it? What's the topic of conversation? And then after the event happens, there's almost this little bit of a a lull in the market, possibly a retracement post-halving, just because we have seen the news go out the way. But if we look at the over 1 year course of by the end of 2025, the impact of the halving, there'll be 300,000 BTC less that have been mined because of the reduction in BTC supply. So the full impact of the less Bitcoin in circulation, that will only come into effect, and we'll feel the impact of that later down the line too. So it's going to be an interesting one. I think straight after the halving, price and the correlation between the news bubble and the excitement might not necessarily be as high as people are expecting, but it will definitely be a talking point that I do predict to bring on a lot more people.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there had been at least a pickup in social activity kind of after the spot ETF, but of course it follows. I guess activity follows the price going up. So that was really interesting to see. Rob, and by the way, the 2020 halving, as you mentioned, was absolutely crazy because like 2 months before the halving, it felt like everything was just crashing down, you know, forever, and then the Fed printed a lot of money, and then the rest is history. Rob, do you have anything to add to that? I mean, does it feel like last halving to you at all? Any differences? What are your thoughts right now about the halving?
I mean, no, everything Jess said was right. I think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to hear that narrative, and it's not just the narrative that we talk about. It's a narrative that the MSNBCs, the CNBCs are going to talk about on Squawk Box and everywhere else, and everywhere you're going to hear the same thing. There's a halving, there's a reduction in supply, and people are going to come out of the woodwork and gobble it up, hopefully. But as far as like for 2020, there is a little bit of a difference, and I think the big difference is that, of course, we can point to, as far as institutions, just how big the ETF was. And Larry Fink came out, I want to say it was yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday. And again, he was on, I think it was CNBC, and he said, look, this is the most successful ETF launch of all time, as far as like inflows. So if you take that narrative, which again, institutions coming in and everybody's happy with that, and the narrative for there's a reduction in supply because of this halving, which most people aren't going to really understand anyhow. They're just going to hear about there's half of it, so I lose half my Bitcoin. I need to get some more Bitcoin. Okay, sounds good. And then we'll just kind of roll with that. But there is the last thing I will say is everybody expects it to do this. So of course we thought not too long ago that this halving or the ETFs were going to keep going in a straight line. And what happened? Went from 73,000 down to 60,000. So just remember, everybody, that if you think it goes in a straight line, and I know you don't think this because you guys aren't tourists if you're here right now. The tourists are going to come in 6 months or so. But just know that it's going to be a bumpy road getting to that promised land of this massive bull run. So I see things are going well, and we got to the narratives, but it's anybody's guess of just how far up we'll go.
I've seen some comments, maybe not from like new people, but I think there have been some people that were here in 2021 that kind of like disappeared for a couple of years, and I've started to see some of those people come back. Maybe not a lot of new people other than through the spot ETFs, but I have certainly seen, I mean, I talked to a couple. There was one person I talked to that said that they had never bought Bitcoin before, but they finally bought it because they had easy access to the spot ETF. I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, I thought that was really, really interesting. I mean, it really does go to show that like, there's all sorts of people that view it in different ways. So some people wait until spot ETF to sort of jump in.
Hey, wait, real quick, Ben. Sorry, real quick. I just want to ask Jessica this question because I don't know the answer, which is on part of that question, it was about, is retail coming back, right? Or is this going to really be the catalyst? Jessica, tell me, or if you can, like over there at Coin Bureau, what kind of not offers, but different projects that are talking to you guys as far as like legitimate good projects? Because for me, like in the bear market, I saw nothing but trash, and it was like 5 or 10 projects. But now it's like I see 2 to 3 projects a week that are actually pretty good, that actually gets through a due diligence process for us. But what have you seen over there? Because I think that's the catalyst. I think the new projects that are coming actually work and actually do things. And like you said, deep in. But what do you guys see over there?
Really good point. And a lot of the projects that we're speaking to that are the good ones also don't necessarily need a lot of money right now. This is another thing that we're finding. So, for example, we had an AMA space with Babylon at the moment. We had that around 2 weeks ago. The co-founder of Babylon, really, really interesting guy. So, professor of engineering at Stanford University. They're looking at doing Bitcoin staking on other kind of platforms and ecosystems. For example, Cosmos SDK, and they have raised 26 million from the likes of Binance Labs, OKX Ventures. So exchanges are also putting money back into the projects with potential. So Bitcoin staking, restaking, and liquid staking is another big narrative. Deepin is a huge one as well. And we're seeing the use cases come out already, which I think is really significant too, is you're not just seeing the concepts, but you're seeing the examples that have been rolled out successfully, which is always great to see. So this is also, as you said, a market indicator that right now, all the projects that we're seeing come through are projects that have been building during the bear market, and now they're able to really come up and show what they've built and not rush to market too, which is interesting. I am also seeing, and just to echo what Ben was saying about people coming back in and buying Bitcoin, I have seen and started to get the messages through also about meme coins. So people are coming to ask me, oh, what kind of meme coins are going up? And, they always come back and they always come back to check in what's going on. But that is also kind of an indication that there's a little bit of hype getting built up around the ecosystem.
Yeah. And then, great point. I that's why I was thinking, I was like, I think that retail is going to come back when these new products come in. And then I think we'll move on. But Ben, for your Bitcoin dominance videos, which are great, by the way, I think you just put one out that was almost 2 hours. I was very happy. I got to listen to that as I was walking my dog. It was great. But there's this website, L2.watch, and it's like 25, 30 different projects that are all being built on Bitcoin and L2s. So like, Ben, if you're looking for the Bitcoin dominance, I think that's the way forward, as these projects are building on Bitcoin to do things like roll-ups, like payments, like DEXs and stuff like that. It's just something to look at. I think that could be the next narrative that no one really is talking about, but I'm kind of digressing from the points. I just wanted to tell people that I think next bull one's gonna be big. It's just the new products that are coming out.
Yeah, I was just looking at, because one of the questions you asked, Jessica, I was like looking to see. I've been getting about, I don't know, like 3 to 4 messages a day about various things. I mean, I just ignore all of them, but seems like about, I don't know, like at least half of them are scams, and the others are, I don't know, questionable.
I'm glad you clarified they were for people trying to get you to promote something, rather than, I thought they were people that were family or friends asking you about crypto. And I thought you were saying, I have 4 people asking you about crypto and you ignore all of them. I was thinking, wow, Ben, that's pretty savage.
Well, Ben's hardcore. He's like, sorry, Mom, I can't talk to you right now.
I actually do ignore a lot of, people give me a hard time. I have 136 unread text messages, 49,000 unread emails, and 19 unviewed phone calls. So it is actually, there is some truth to that. It sort of doesn't bleed over into that. But yeah, I don't know.
That's a market top indicator right there. As soon as it hits 200 unread WhatsApps, it's.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this before a couple of weeks ago. Like, my mom messaged me about the price of Bitcoin, and I was like, oh gosh, here we go. She's not normally one to notice at most times, so the fact that she's noticing means that at least it's getting the attention of some people.
That's right.
But all right, so next question. I wanted to pivot over to Ethereum. I know, Jessica, we talked about this probably about a couple of months ago, and you were saying that the odds for the ETH ETF approval were at like 45%. I think we followed that up a little bit later, and they were still at around the same level. I'm curious if that has changed at all. I don't imagine that it has, but there was sort of a headline this week, maybe yesterday, $4.5 trillion asset manager Fidelity files S1 form for spot Ethereum ETF with staking. So I'm curious if analysts are still pessimistic about the ETF chances for Ethereum in May. Seems like a lot of people that were optimistic about the Bitcoin ETF are not really that optimistic about Ethereum. With the exception of some. I think Grayscale has expressed that they're pretty optimistic that it's going to get approved. But what are your thoughts? And have there been any changes on the approval odds for the Ethereum ETF?
Okay, would you guys like to guess? I actually have the chart up here, so I can share my screen in a second. So Eric Balkunis, who is the ETF analyst and expert at Bloomberg, has said a 35% prediction of a likelihood of getting approved. Polymarket is a little bit different. Yeah, Ben, correct. Last time we spoke, it was 45% likelihood. Do you both want to take a guess now at what the likelihood is?
I don't know. Like if I only knew about the Fidelity news, I might be a little bit more optimistic. But I mean, it just seems like so many of the analysts that I follow have just been saying like it's probably not going to be in May. So I don't know. I'll say 40%.
Rob, what are you thinking?
Somewhere between 10 and 70%, just like my Bitcoin price predictions. Yes.
Okay, so currently a 20% chance of approval.
Nailed it. Great.
Can I share your screen? Are you sharing?
20%. Wow, that's crazy.
Can you see?
Yeah, I need to add it to the stage.
Okay.
All right, there we go. Yeah, so it's dropped a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's certainly interesting.
Yeah. So it's interesting because we saw Fidelity file for this right after it was announced the SEC's case against Coinbase would be proceeding. And then BlackRock also announced recently they have having a tokenized fund on Ethereum focusing on real-world assets, RWA, just a few hours after the SEC announced that it was investigating the entities behind Ethereum, so the Ethereum Foundation. So it's not looking completely optimistic. I think a lot of the analysts, so Eric Balkunas and James Seyfarth, they've also been saying that there has not been as much bounce back between the SEC, the ETF issuers and the SEC when it comes to revising the updates. So that is reducing the likelihood of a May approval. So yeah, let's see. It's definitely not looking as bullish as it was for the spot Bitcoin ETFs.
I wonder if it's going to be like it gets rejected in May, and I mean, if you look at the ETH Bitcoin valuation, I saw that Guy did a video on sort of this idea about alt season and like what's kind of going on, and he was talking about the ETH Bitcoin valuation. I wonder if like that sort of breaking support finally is going to correspond to people kind of giving up on the short-term hopes of a spot ETF, and then maybe it'll be approved next year. Maybe it'll be one of those things that we just have to figure stuff out for the next year or so, and then it gets approved in 2025. So that would be interesting if it plays out like that. Rob, did you want to add anything to it, or are we?
No, that's it. 20% sounds good to me. I don't think it's gonna. I mean, I was wrong before, but I don't see how it could happen. But hey, anything's possible. But I will say is like, do we really need an ETF for Ethereum? Because I mean, it'd be great and for price action, but we already front ran all the institutions back in 2017 to get into Bitcoin, and of course they came in late, and we'll front run them again for all the different products that are out there. But of course that's risky and not financial advice, obviously.
I just wonder if it's gonna. You can kind of see the narrative playing out, right? It gets rejected, ETH Bitcoin breaks support, goes down. Everyone capitulates, and then it bottoms right around the time the Fed pivots, just like it did last cycle, and then maybe it slowly starts to build up into the spot ETF actually being approved next year. I wonder if it'll play out like that. It wouldn't be that surprising to me. So,
sorry, just to add, it seems like Larry Fink as well, who's like the CEO of BlackRock, he also doesn't seem to be particularly worried about the issue, because obviously there's the question mark right now about ETH being a security or not. And he spoke yesterday on Fox Business, I believe, and said that an Ether ETF would still be possible, even if the US SEC says that Ethereum is a security. So I think he seems to see the dollar signs that a ETH ETF could bring him, and is pretty optimistic that regardless of what comes the next few months, still going to go ahead.
It's in his financial interest to be optimistic, right?
Exactly.
But I mean, even if it is a security, it certainly could still. I mean, I don't really think it should be. I think it should be a commodity, but I think eventually, regardless of its standing, we'll probably have an ETF for it. Next question, Rob, we'll start with you on this one. I saw a headline: the U.S. Justice Department indicted KuCoin exchange and two founders for running an unlicensed money transmitting business and violating the Bank Secrecy Act. I mean, is this just the same old thing? Or, I mean, I know you talked a lot last year and in 2022 about, we either stand together or they pick us off one by one. Is this kind of, do you see this as the war on crypto just getting started? Like, is this going to just be a continual thing we see for the next several years? Or Is this just like sort of some last attempts to rein people in? What do you think about this headline?
Just real quick, who brought the lawsuit? Was it the Justice Department?
Yeah, it was the Justice Department.
Oh, okay. Well, they all work together. I just, I mean, do I think it's a war on crypto? It seems like it continually is. But let me share this one real quick thing. It seems like, and remember, first of all, I'm an American, so I just think everything revolves around America. I'm biased. That's just how I've always been. And unfortunately, that's not true. And there was, this was yesterday, KuCoin just came out and said, yeah, we're going to get sued, but we're going to do an airdrop of the KuCoin token. So it's as we remember this is comedy, really, is what it is, because Gary and the DOJ and the different entities are taking big losses in court, and they know they really can't win this fight, but they have to do it to save face. And I don't know, like, to talk about Gary and what he's doing, Gary Gensler, and because he keeps losing and he keeps having setbacks, but yet he keeps going forward. And I just don't think that it's in, they're really trying to protect the US investor. I think really what it comes down to is they're trying to protect their own interests and then move up that ladder of whatever they're trying to scale for the next position of whatever they're doing. That's just, of course, hearsay, but that's what I think. But I will say, I mean, KuCoin doing this is great. And it wasn't just about, just doing this airdrop in spite of this. Really what it came down to was this was actually from the CEO. And he said, hey, on March 26th and 27th, some users experienced longer than expected wait times during the withdrawal process. As a People's Exchange, we feel a deep sense of responsibility. We'd like to sincerely apologize. To express our gratitude, we're going to roll out 10 million in airdrop of KCS and Bitcoin. And I was thinking to myself, first of all, I thought that's a great thing. I mean, for these exchanges to say, hey, we're sorry that we screwed up and had this little problem, so here's some money to make it all right. And I was thinking to myself, man, I don't know how many times Coinbase went down, but they're just like, well, sorry about that, and that's it. So there's 2 points here. I don't think that this is really going to make a big difference. The DOJ does whatever they want to do. And the second thing is I have to appreciate exchanges that step up for their customers. And those are the ones that are going to do very well. So just a message to Coinbase. If you want to do something like that for your base token, I'm okay with that.
You wouldn't complain, right?
I would not complain. I have a wallet for you guys. Yeah.
Jessica, what are your thoughts about that? I mean, I know Rob's been talking about that for a while too, but do you have something to add about what's going on with KuCoin right now?
Yeah, I think this kind of crackdown is inevitable, and it always will be inevitable. If the question is kind of, are we constantly going to see crackdowns on crypto? Yes, because crypto is the only way to move real US dollars without the help of a US correspondent bank. And the US government, they hate that. This is not an ideal setup for them. And I think if we look at what has happened with KuCoin, so the indictment that was filed against KuCoin, it cited 2 public tweets. And I had a little look at both of the tweets, and one of them was really shocking because it was so subtle. It was a KuCoin customer representative had responded to a tweet from a US resident saying, rest assured, you're not obligated to do KYC on KuCoin. So it just seems like they're really just scraping the barrel for any kind of examples that they can do, which can be classed as an indictment and can be held against them, which is a tough time, not only for the crypto exchanges, but also for people like us that are in crypto that use these platforms. So I think the question is, there's always going to be the difficulty of exchanges being under the spotlight. As the industry gets bigger, that's going to be something that is getting more and more public. We've got SBF's trial today that's coming out in just a few hours. We've got CZ's trial on the 30th of April. This is going to be a rolling news occurrence that we do see in the industry. So then it's about how can we as crypto users, how can we navigate through that without getting our assets froze or halted? And hats off to KuCoin. They did a pretty successful job with having the outflows and not recording any downtime yesterday. So in 24 hours, they recorded, I think it was over $1.1 billion of outflows on the exchange. And that was without any wobbles. It's the same as, the kind of the Binance USDT stablecoin. They do perform well at times when they need to, and that's what you would expect. So I think the thing is now to discuss how we as users can avert some of the challenges that will come with the crypto crackdown, because that is going to be the next thing, especially as the market does increase and as more retail users flow into the market. So get yourself a few different exchanges. Don't keep your funds on exchanges as well, just in case there is any halting of movements. And one thing that we spoke about, I think Nick did a tweet about this recently, and me and Nick have both been in this experience where we've been unbanked from bank accounts we've used because we use crypto. So I was unbanked from Revolut in 2021 because I was working for a cryptocurrency exchange. So it wasn't even that I was off-ramping funds. I was just getting my salary paid through. I had all the documentation, but nope, Revolut didn't want to do it because they only wanted to offer custodial crypto, which is crazy. And Nick, who is the CEO of Coin Bureau, he was unbanked recently from a bank that he was using for 12 years because of involvement with cryptocurrency. So I think one thing that I would say to anyone watching is like, just be careful when it comes to the next 12 to 18 months. If you are ramping up your crypto involvement, even if you just use crypto a little bit, have a few different exchanges, make sure you KYC on them so that you are able to on and off ramp with ease of use and you're not stuck to one exchange. Don't have your funds on the exchange, use hardware wallets to have that additional security. And then also use, possibly if needed for off ramping, a shadow bank account where that is your bank account that you can off-ramp into, but don't let that be your main bank account, because if the bank just wants to press the stop button because they don't like the fact you're using crypto, then it is pretty much game over. So it's just a cautious tale. And actually I was looking through some emails, an email thread, and I will share my screen because I thought it was pretty interesting. And it was the 2010 emails that had emerged from Satoshi. And he was discussing, can you see my screen? Yeah. And he was talking about the difficulty that people will have with getting in and out of crypto. So he was saying that Bitcoin is one of those assets that is going to be really difficult to get out of crypto. And he was giving some examples of easy ways to off-ramp in the world. And he was saying that there are many variations, but gift cards in 2010 was his best solution for off-ramping crypto. And he was even saying, kind of be careful, don't test it out now. Don't rush and try and off-ramp your Bitcoin, because the credit card companies just do not like the idea of you taking money out of the systems. And it's just interesting that, 14 years on, with the industry growing to the size that it is now, on and off ramping into crypto is still a huge issue. And I think it's going to be one of the biggest pain points that we're going to see in this market cycle, just because of the gains that we are going to see in the industry, how people get those funds out and they're able to reintroduce them into their day-to-day life.
Kind of seems like the things that people are worried about are often the things they shouldn't be worried about, and they should be worried about other things. Like in 2022, everyone was worried about Binance, and it was FTX that collapsed. Everyone was worried about USDT, and it was USDC that temporarily lost its peg. It just seems like everyone's always focused on like the wrong thing as to what they really should be worried about, which is kind of interesting. The next question is, you guys have both touched on this a little bit already. You've mentioned a couple of things, but I'll just throw it back to you again in case you want to add on to it. The halving is in April. We'll have some form of resolution to the SPY ETF with Ethereum, probably by May, whether they kick the can down the road or whatever. But what next, I guess? What after May? What do we have to look forward to? What will be the narratives that the market clings to as we get because it was the SPY ETF, and now obviously the halving, and then you have the next one being the ETF for Ethereum. What are we going to be talking about this summer, Rob?
Depends on. Well, right now everybody who's listening is probably saying whatever their coin is, that's what just popped in their head. Like, oh, I know what it is. It's going to be this coin, iCoin, and this coin. No one really knows. It could be just be Bitcoin, and that's it. But I think that for the people that are here now, I think the big thing, of course, will be. Of course, Bitcoin will have its play because of the ETF and everything that's coming in. But again, I think the narratives, and Jess brought this up a little bit ago, is DePIN, decentralized physical infrastructure network, because it makes sense, especially with what crypto can do. AI, artificial intelligence, and we did a whole video on this about how nation states are actually investing in the computational power or compute, and how they're actually waging a war against that for all the different countries, because they want to have that dominant piece. And how do you do that? Well, you have to have as much GPUs as you possibly can, but they're limited for these H100s that are coming out of NVIDIA, which cost tens of thousands of dollars. So the best thing to do is to maximize the compute or the computational power by using different standards or different organizations that can actually pull that in and then disperse it amongst everybody for AI. So I think AI will be big. DePIN, Web3 I've always talked about. And I didn't see this one coming, but we just talked about this in the very beginning. L2 is on Bitcoin. I didn't think this would be a big thing. And I think it'll be a big thing because it leads itself to what we just talked about, the ETF, and people are so excited about that. And then this new opportunity that people might actually have to build on top of Bitcoin, which was the maximalist one anyhow. And then to actually say, well, this is the most secure network we can possibly find. There's no downtime. It's fantastic and it works great. Let's do that. And then you'll have the, like I said, the meme coins, the DEXs, and the different, I guess it'd be Bitcoin alts that are coming in. So I think that'll be the next big narrative, potentially, but who knows?
My brain hurts when you say Bitcoin alts, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, I was saving that just for that moment, so Ben could relish in that phrase.
Yeah, I know. Jessica, what about? And I think you talked a little bit about this earlier, Jessica. But what narratives are you thinking will be the thing kind of running their course in the summer?
Yeah, so agree with Rob with the DePIN and RWA as a kind of a trending talking point. I think as well, agreeing with the idea of other ecosystems that are building on top of the Bitcoin network. I think that's going to be something that people will really see value into and want to put a lot of effort into. Crypto gaming is something that will probably come back out again, and crypto platforms that are rolling up. Hopefully, we'll start to see a little bit more of an altcoin season kind of get underway. And initially, Ben, when you were like, what are you guys going to be looking forward to in summer? And I was like, well, I kind of want to be spending some of my crypto, to be honest with you guys. So I'm hoping that's going to be kind of something that we can see too. I think from a standpoint of what kind of narratives or news topics can we see after the halving, I think regulations, unfortunately, are going to be a bit of a talking point as well. We've got some stablecoin regulations coming into focus over here in Europe. And hopefully, us as crypto investors, will get a little bit more clarity on what that means for the likes of stablecoin involvement across European cryptocurrency platforms and exchanges and our interaction there. Also things to kind of keep ahead. One narrative that always comes up, and this is something that I always mention to the team, is I always look at cryptocurrency events as being a possible smaller market catalyst. So you guys have got Bitcoin Nashville in July, and we've got Bitcoin Prague over in June. So there's going to be, so who knows, there might be a little bit of market movements in the build up to those, or some interesting announcements coming out.
Sounds like plenty of things to talk about this summer. Yeah, I think a lot of conferences coming up, I guess, over the next few months. Guys, if you have any questions for any of us, go ahead and put them in the chat. We're going to get to the last question, but if you have anything, just go ahead and put it there so we will see it. Last question, and I thought this one was really funny. I think I wonder what Peter Schiff thinks about this. South American gold and precious metals producer Milam Resources announces that it plans to purchase 24,800 Bitcoin. I saw this headline a few days ago. What are your thoughts about that? I mean, a gold miner buying Bitcoin? Just kind of, it really kind of, if you think about, the sort of the gold bugs and, the sort of those narratives about that we've seen pushed for a long time, it really just seems counterintuitive for a gold miner to then use it to buy Bitcoin. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Just seems a little unexpected. What do you guys think about this? Jessica?
The first thing I thought of when I saw this was that this is just such a top signal. Like, this is just so the company, because we spoke about this on the live stream yesterday, myself and Guy. So Milam Resources have submitted a letter of intent to buy $1.7 million worth of Bitcoin, around 24,000 BTC. And the company share price. It's a publicly listed company. I believe they had a market cap of under $5 million before the marketing stunt of the announcement of the letter of intent to buy all of these Bitcoin stocks. And then the kind of Michael Saylor-esque movement that they then undertook saw their share price go up 1,700% in a week.
Wow.
And people had flagged up like, oh, this could be a little bit of a public concern. Is this just a kind of marketing stunt or a corporate strategy from a penny stock that's kind of dying to try and become cool and trendy again? And then I looked into it again today, and I'd read that Ron McIntyre, who was the CEO, actually had resigned on the back of the news and said, like, just look at the chart. It's a classic pump and dump. The Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, FINRA, will investigate Nylon Resources on the back of this. I didn't kind of know that this was going to be one of the announcements they were going to make, because if they did go ahead and acquire all this Bitcoin, they would have the second largest holding of BTC from any publicly listed company, only behind the likes of MicroStrategy. So it was a pretty crazy news story. And Guy had mentioned that this was very similar to 2017, where there was a New York-based Long Island iced tea maker that had changed its name to Long Blockchain Corp, and then their share price had gone up 200%. So I personally love the fact that we're seeing it's now cool to say you're investing in Bitcoin, or you're open to Bitcoin if you are a publicly listed company or a company that has no involvement in the cryptocurrency sphere. I think what a long way we've come for everyone that is involved in crypto or watching this. Crypto's cool for the boring companies. We take our hats off to them. But I just thought it was an interesting turn of events to see how the narrative has changed, and investing in Bitcoin is not risky and cautious. It's a little bit cool and edgy.
Yeah, I didn't know that backstory, but it makes a lot of sense. Why wouldn't they do it? It's just like the .com era, when these different companies would change their name to something.com, and all of a sudden their stock prices would go up. Makes a lot of sense. I do the same thing, especially if I'm hurting.
Or like AI, adding AI into it.
Yeah.
Of course, that'll rocket everything up.
All right, guys, we're gonna go through questions in the chat. So if you guys have any, go ahead and post them. Let me see what questions we have. I don't understand. I mean, there's a lot of different things on here. Here's one. What are your thoughts on the AI merge between AGIX, FET, and Ocean?
Ben, what are your thoughts?
It's like they're trying to speak English to me. I know it. I don't know. I'm a little
This was so we did a video on this yesterday because I couldn't actually believe it. I didn't know that, first of all, that Fetch AI was around since 2019. Ocean, same thing, and AGIX, Dr. Ben Gortzel. They've been around for quite some time, and they all merged together to make it some type of it's going to be a brand new token. It's not just a consortium. It's actually they're taking these tokens, and there's a exchange rate for what you're going to get. I think for AGIX and Ocean, it's like 0.43 or 0.42 per token to get one of this new one, ASI. And then Fetch, I think, remains the exact same. So this, first of all, this token is not out yet. So I want everybody to be aware of that. Because when I was doing this live stream yesterday, people were saying, I already got some. Like, no, you didn't, because they still have to vote for this to actually to ratify it, to let it go through. But you got three big companies in AI. If you combine all three of these, it'll be $7.1 billion market cap, which will put them almost in the top 20 just by doing this move right here. So each three do something a little bit different. I think it'll be interesting to see how it works out. And of course, it depends on the community. I would think that it would go through, but I think it's big for AI. And just like we were talking about, the narratives are what are going to drive things moving forward into the summer and then to the end of the 2024. This is one of them.
Interesting.
Sorry, I was
lazy.
Let me see some other questions here.
Ben's looking through it like, I don't know. Is this English?
So
I don't understand what this is.
But Rob, do you invest personally in AI tokens? Do you have any AI tokens in your portfolio at the moment?
I do. I have a lot of tokens.
Okay. Well, congratulations. It's a good few months for AI.
But you know what? It's cool about AI. It's great. Like, so, you know, like, but here's a great thing, because people like hate the fact when you say Solana is going to be the Ethereum killer, or Solana is going to do this, or Ethereum is going to break over this, or Cardano is going to do this. But what's great about this space in the AI and compute sector is that all these different, like Akash, Tensor, Render, Theta, Aether, Ajax, FET, and Ocean, they can all coexist because there's so much demand that is coming for it. You don't have to say, well, this is the winner. You can just pick one of these. You can close your eyes and throw a dart at one of these names on the wall, and you'll probably do great in the next bull run. And that's what I like about this sector. I don't have to worry about like, well, I hope people's feelings don't get hurt when I talk about this coin, because there's just so much demand. And I think it's going to do well all over across the way. So yeah, I own Fetch. I sold some because of a particular reason, but and then some new plays that we're getting into, of course, Akash, and we've held Theta for a long time, and then Aether is a new big one.
Nice.
And then you, Jess, you guys over there. I know Ben doesn't hold any.
Me personally, no. I was the paper hands that sold some AI tokens just before the little.
Of course.
But I'm happy for everyone that has diamond handed their AI tokens.
Exactly. Congratulations to you guys.
Do you guys know this answer? How much Bitcoin has been lost forever, and how does that compare to Bitcoin yet to be mined? I mean, I don't think anyone actually knows the answer, but have you heard of like any estimates to that?
Yeah.
Isn't it around 3 million?
Yeah. Like I've heard
lost forever.
Yeah, I've heard 3 million. I've heard 4 million. I've heard up to 6 million. So somewhere between 3 and 6 million, which is a boatload, but it's never reflected in the price. But what if they ever did do that? But how can you prove it though? How can you prove it's actually lost? Because just not too long ago, I think there was one of the original Bitcoin that was mined was actually moved onto an exchange and sold, which is crazy to think about. They held all the way to 70,000. They sold it.
That is crazy. And I think it was just last week as well, we saw the 5th biggest whale recently moved $6 billion worth of crypto, 94,000 BTC, and that hadn't been moved since 2019. So yeah, similar to what you say, there's dormant addresses that suddenly might just wake up and start moving some things around.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Someone asked, what effect will the ETFs have on retail entering the crypto market? Big companies are buying up all the available Bitcoin or whatever coin ETF. How can we buy Bitcoin?
How do you want to buy Bitcoin?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what do you feel safe with. Like all three of us probably feel safe with using a cold storage device. And if you're okay with that, then you should get it on exchange and move it off that exchange. And then one more thing about exchanges is that, you know, there's this term that's for off market or on market, or on the books or off the books. And that was one of the big things as far as like commingling of funds with FTX, Celsius, and Voyager. But I think for most of the exchanges, they still commingle and they still actually have it on the books, or on, I forgot the term exactly. So that's why, like, when I hear about these things, I'm like, take it off the exchange as much as possible. But if you don't feel comfortable with that and you're like, I don't trust myself, then of course ETF would be the way to go. And you can also put that into retirement accounts like Roth IRAs and stuff like that.
Someone says, how are we going to explain to future generations we lost 3 million Bitcoin? This person suggests between 4 to 8 million has been lost.
We lost it all in a boating accident. That's what we say. The tax man asks us. Everyone knows that.
Yeah, that's a response.
Well, really, it just means it's scarcer. So if you hold 1 or 2 BTC, it's more good news for you, because the 21 million is now 17, 18 million.
Exactly. Should be worth more.
I'm trying to find some questions, but I mean, I feel like people are just, I don't know, they're just shilling their odds.
You should see my comment section when I do a live stream. It's the great thing.
I did see some. I saw one earlier. I can't find it now, but it said, oh, here it is. What do you guys think about no rate cuts this year? I think the I think 3 rate cuts have been advertised, but I think a couple of the members have recently walked that back to only 1 or 2 cuts. My guess is that they will cut this year. I just, probably in June, perhaps. I don't know. I think that's what the markets are expecting.
I have a follow-up. What happens when they do cut? Like, where do the markets go?
That was the next question. Doesn't Bitcoin usually drop after rate cuts? There's only been one example, right? I mean, it's not like we have 100 years of data to sort of go off of. If you look at the S&P 500, it depends on why they're cutting, right? So like if they're cutting in 2019, the Fed cut rates and the S&P still went up. Bitcoin went down, and crypto went down, but also Bitcoin was not as connected to, TradFi as much as it is today. But there's other times when rate cuts occur and they're panic cuts, right? They're panicking because they waited too long and now they're having to aggressively cut. So it depends on why they cut. There's like no usually about it. It's just one example of when they cut rates. Bitcoin dropped last cycle.
I got it.
But it really depends on why they're cutting, I think, is what it comes back to. What other questions? We still have a few more minutes.
There was one question that came up, which was, how would each of you personally deploy 40K USD sidelined? Which I think is kind of a good one. I'm allowed to bring that into the table.
Yeah, let me find it. Go ahead and answer it.
Yeah, Jessica, what would you do? So you have 40,000, right? You and the Coin Bureau team, you guys all get together and say, okay, this is it, guys. This is what we're going to do. All that brain power over there, which is a lot. Like, where would you guys put it?
I think you put, I'm not going to speak for the team here because they're probably watching, shaking the laptop like, no, Jessica, that's not all we do. I would probably put 50% in BTC just as my stability little fund. Maybe the other 50%, divide 25% of that into 75% Solana, 25% Ethereum. So that's the other 50-50. And then I would maybe start to build a little bit more of a degenerate moon bag kind of play. So maybe a few different AI tokens might go in there. What else would be interesting? Maybe some of the competitive layer 2s, like the likes of Sui, could be one that I would probably allocate some funds into. And then, maybe a few deep in plays as well that are kind of ones to watch.
Meme coins?
I am staying away from the whole meme coin hype. I'm just too slow on the trigger.
Exactly. See, 50% of meme coins, that could be $1 billion.
Yeah, I'd be some of you guys exit liquidity. I'd be holding my meme coins until 2027. And honestly, I'm too much of a mature investor to be holding meme coins at this moment in my life. So I would not be holding meme coins because I need to sleep soundly at night. I need the peace of mind. What about you guys?
It's a pretty smart move. Ben, what would you do with 40K? And let's say let's say things are different. Let's say that Bitcoin, it hits its dominance point, and then the ETH and Bitcoin pair set up the right way. We're like, okay, now it's time for alts. The alt season is here.
Well, I mean, last time when ETH Bitcoin went to that level, it still wasn't alt season. Like when ETH Bitcoin broke support, I think like everyone keeps thinking like, oh, well, when it breaks support, that's when alt season finally arrives. But in reality, the last 2 times that ETH Bitcoin broke support, once in 2016 and the other time in 2019, after ETH Bitcoin broke support, ETH then dropped 50% at least on its USD pair. So I wouldn't argue that alt season is going to occur when ETH Bitcoin breaks support. I would say that after it breaks support, it probably takes about 2 to 3 months to bottom on its Bitcoin pair, and then it would probably start to trend up. So like if we're further out and a lot of these altcoins have now broken down on their Bitcoin support levels, then I probably would. I would still have most of it in Bitcoin. I mean, there's not like a time in the market cycle where I would ever have like more than 30% or something in a crypto that's not Bitcoin. I think it just makes sense. I mean, think about it now. Like Bitcoin hit its new all-time highs, and there's most altcoins haven't. And if Bitcoin were to pull back into rate cuts in the summer, like let's say we get rate cuts this summer, a lot of these altcoins haven't hit new all-time highs. And then it just sort of goes to show once again why why being just sort of Bitcoin heavy was a much easier way to sleep at night. If you have had Ethereum over the last couple of years, I don't imagine you're that upset, but you are still down 41% against Bitcoin. So you literally could have bought a less risky asset and you would have made more money. But I have learned the hard way that people don't care about that. They just care about the fact that it's up on its USD pair. So, but I would say, yeah, if dominance is at like 60%, and we've sort of worked that out, and we're starting to come out of the trenches from all these Bitcoin devaluations, then I would still say like 70% Bitcoin, and then it would probably be like 20% ETH, and then the rest like about 10% alts. I think that's kind of how I did it last cycle. Maybe I was a little bit less conservative last cycle. That's probably how I would do it. Do it now. But I think that there's sort of, have you guys noticed that like, at least over the last year or maybe like the last 6 months, like Bitcoin has been reclaiming market share. So the dominance has been going up. So like people who have been heavy Bitcoin have been doing quite well. And a lot of the top altcoins have been bleeding to Bitcoin, right? Like Ethereum has been bleeding, Cardano, Polkadot, right? A lot of these have been kind of just bleeding back to Bitcoin. Even Avalanche, I mean, it did pump some in the first part of this year, but it's still been bleeding back to Bitcoin. So it seems like the larger market cap altcoins have been bleeding back to Bitcoin, but some of the smaller market cap ones, those have been doing better against Bitcoin than the larger market cap ones. So that is something I've definitely noticed this cycle that was a little bit different last cycle. Last cycle, it seemed like they all went down against Bitcoin for the most part, except for a few. This cycle, it seems like the larger market cap ones have been bleeding to Bitcoin, while some of the smaller ones, most of the ones that don't have all the baggage, right, from the last cycle, those have been the ones that have been doing the best.
That's just it. And that's the biggest thing right there. It all comes down to like your risk tolerance. Like for Jessica, she's like pretty much in the middle of the road. Ben's more conservative and mine's more on the riskier side. But then it comes down to baggage. A lot of these, like the products you just mentioned, the Cardano, the Polkadot, what was the other one that you mentioned? Those are the ones Avalanche, yeah, for somewhat. Those are the ones that have a lot of different disgruntled investors who are like, hey, I bought this at the top. I need to unload this at some point. And they're doing that.
XRP is another one.
Isn't that a stable coin? I'm just kidding. But yeah, like on all these cryptos, it just seems like some of these ones that are legacy, it's like you have to kind of move past those to get to the next big thing, whatever the next big thing actually is. And that's where the risk comes in. But everybody wants to do that because it's tough. It is tough.
It goes back to the idea of like, don't marry an altcoin, because this is what happens. And I would also say that I do think the larger market cap alts will make a turn against Bitcoin at some point, but I don't think that's going to occur until after rate cuts. Until then, I just think they're just going to keep on bleeding, and I don't see that changing in the short term. Yeah, someone says what do you guys think about FBF's his sentencing today?
Well, I think the lawyers, Jessica, doesn't the lawyers think that he should be only at like 6 or 7 years, but then the court wants 50?
Yeah, so his lawyers are saying, all the FTX creditors, everyone has been reimbursed for the full amount. I think us in crypto, we know that everyone will be reimbursed their USD amount that was the equivalent crypto from the time of the market. So actually they've missed out on some pretty significant market gains, plus also the stress of everything that has happened. So his lawyers are looking for 6.5, and then it could go as high as, I think it could be over a life, right? It could be.
I just saw 50 years and I'm like, that guy's not going to make 50 years, but yeah, 6 years or below. I don't know.
There is also a poll on Poly Market for this too, for the SBF sentencing. And I think I have it somewhere. Let me have a little look.
Is there any way to gamble on that? Just kidding. But yeah, sounds like something to do.
Rob, you got meme coins for that.
Oh, I found a great meme coin, everybody. So like there's this new meme coin.
Wait, how do I do
that? It's called Costco Dog. Oh my God. And it's a meme coin of the Costco dog from $1.50. And of course, it's useless, it's worthless, but it's just a funny thing. There's a lot of meme coins out there.
So this is the SBF trial polymarket scan, if you guys can see.
Oh, this looks like Vegas. This is great.
Yeah, I know it's the crypto industry is a wild place. So it's looking like between 20 to 50 years is the market expectation. A lot of people do not seem likely or convinced that SBF will get anything under 10 years. So let's see. I think Tiffany Fong is already sleeping outside the courthouse so she can get an early seat. The commitment to the cause with her is fantastic. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, she's covered it really well, honestly.
Yeah.
It's been great to see that. Yeah, to see sort of all the updates that she's provided. Let's see. Are there any other questions you guys saw that caught your eye?
There's one. Any good cold wallets? Jessica, what do you use? Ben, what do you use? Because if we're going to talk about self-custody.
Yeah. Ben, do you want to go first on this one?
Nope. I don't like talking about any of the different wallets because like what ends up happening is, think about like what happened with some of the wallets last year or the year before, right? And then like I just don't want to kind of tie myself to any of them specifically. So yeah, I think I'm gonna pass, and that's the cop-out answer.
I've had some good feedback from the likes of, like, if you look at wallets that are, linked to the internet connection, things like Exodus, I've heard good feedback from the likes of that. But then I also advocate that to move funds fully off, I personally like a Trezor.
Yeah.
And
yeah. My three favorite, I'll just say, I've used Ledger forever. It seems to work out okay. Never mind the fact that, some of your personal data was taken. That was from a website, from a API integration. So that's that. Tangem. And then I've heard good things about Trezor. So pick one of those three. And if you lose everything, don't blame me because I'm not a part of that company.
Someone says to give SBF 21 million years.
Red Panda Pie. That's good.
All right.
I don't think he's going to make it.
Maybe one more question, and then someone says 25 years. I guess it depends on if they want to make an example or not, or like what they're going for.
Well, he knows. I mean, he's buddies with Gary, so I don't think, maybe he's got some insider tracks on getting something better.
All right, what do you guys think about ETH Bitcoin? It's like on the it's right on that support level that it's been bouncing off of for like forever. Really the same support that it bounced off of in the summer of 22, and then in I feel like it's hit it several times now. So yeah, the summer of 22, and then it hit it in October, November. I mean, it's basically been at that support October, November, December, January, February, and now once again in March. So yeah, I mean, my thought process is it's going to break down. I mean, I could very well be wrong, but I do think it will break down. I just think there's too much, there's just so much focus on Bitcoin right now. And you have the halving in only a few weeks, and I just think that whatever Bitcoin does, I think that Ethereum will underperform it. So like if Bitcoin goes up into the halving, I think Ethereum will underperform it. And if Bitcoin does something, has some crazy sell-off before the halving, then I think Ethereum would take a bigger hit because it's just, it's riskier, and it doesn't have the same ETF flows, right? I mean, Bitcoin has those flows, Ethereum doesn't have it. So yeah, I think it's going to break down. And my guess, my best guess for a bottom is between 0.03 to 0.04. I think that's where it's going to find its bottom for the low. And then I would suspect that it would build out a base around that level, and then probably start to trend higher next year is kind of what I'm thinking. So go to 0.03, 0.04 sometime in the next 2 to 3 months, and then spend the rest of the year down there, and then start trending back up again potentially in 2025 is what I would guess. I don't know if you guys have any different opinions on ETH Bitcoin.
Sounds good. I'm not a big fan of picking up Ethereum, L2s, sure, and some other alts down the road for DCA, but yeah, not a big, have to have a ton of Ethereum.
ETH did dip like crazy as well. I think it was last week, the 20th of March, it dipped to 3,100. So I did regret not buying the ETH dip there, but it definitely does look a little bit more volatile. And as you've mentioned, Ben, the kind of rotation from spot Bitcoin ETFs then can't flow into ETH. So let's see. I think there's a few shakes around the kind of the question marks regulatory in the US wise with the ETH Foundation. So
yeah, and it's not that ETH can't go up on its USD pair. It's just that if it does, it's only because Bitcoin went up more. So that's kind of been my view on it for basically the last 2 years. But I think that view will change around around the shift in monetary policy. I think a lot of the narratives are sort of supporting it, like the potential rejection of the spot ETF and sort of the investigations and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, I think the bigger thing is just monetary policy. And on the other side of we get to looser monetary policy, I think it'll bottom out and then start turning back up. But anyways, I think we can wrap it up there. We've gone an hour. Thank you guys for tuning in. Next week, I will not be able to be here. So I don't know if you guys are going to do it. If you guys just want to skip. But yeah, so next week I won't be here.
Jessica, me, you, Peter Schiff.
Let's do it. We'll keep the ball rolling. Who knows what's going to happen in crypto in a week. Let's do it.
Yeah, no, I was like, the biggest piece of evidence as to why Bitcoin dominance is going to break out next week.
Yeah,
because I'm going to be out of town with like no internet.
I'll make, you know what, Ben, if it does go up, I'll make a long video and I'll make sure it's over 2 hours and just talk about Bitcoin dominance and I'll send it right to you.
You could do that. That'd be super great. Yeah, just carry the torch. Yeah.
It's either that or Pepe coin dominance. One of those two videos will be made.
And if it breaks down, then I still won't know because I'll. So yeah, but I was thinking, I was like, yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to be the first week of April, isn't it? Which is funny because actually in 2019, right before rate cuts arrived, Bitcoin dominance started its big move in the very first week of April.
See, there you go.
Waiting for it. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I don't know. We'll figure it out. I guess they'll figure out if they're going to have it next week. If they do have it, it'll be on Rob's channel. So make sure you guys subscribe to both Rob at Digital Asset News and Jessica at Coin Bureau Clips, and obviously there's their Coin Bureau channel. But if you're subscribed to Rob or I'm sure you're subscribed to Coin Bureau. I think they have like 2.5 million subscribers. So you probably already subscribed there, but subscribe to their Coin Bureau Clips, which is where we will have NFA live, I guess, 2 weeks from now. But anyway, guys, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for coming today again, and we will see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.